Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Saco City Council meeting for Monday, April 1st, 2024. Let the record reflect meeting starting at 6:30. Item number 2 this evening is recognition of the members present. We do have all councilors present, at the exception of Councilor Archer, who has been excused. Would you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And now that takes us to item 4, and we do have a very special recognition this evening. Patrick Coltrane Young. Patrick started in the first grade with Cub Scout Pack 311 in 2012. He joined Den 4 along with his mother, who became one of the Den leaders. He achieved his Arrow of Light Award in March 2017 and then crossed over to BSA Troop 310 along with many of his best friends. Patrick has earned 22 merit badges. His very first badge he earned was his Citizen in Nation in 2017. Patrick completed the Medicine and Public Health merit badges in 2020, right in time to put that knowledge to use. And his favorite merit badge was the game design. He has held many leadership positions. He's been Den Chief, Patrol Leader, Troop Guide, Assistant Senior Patrol Leader, and Senior Patrol Leader. Patrick was honored to carry the American flag during parades as part of the Troop Honor Guard. So whereas the Boy Scouts of America has a history of more than 100 years of helping to shape and mold the values and character of the youth. Whereas the Boy Scouts of America continue to help strengthen youth, families, and communities. Whereas the Boy Scouts of America encourages its adults and youth members to live in the worldwide principles of the organization, including duty to God and respect for individual beliefs, loyalty to one's country and respect for its laws, strength of world friendship and scouting brotherhood, service to others, community development, and the universal regard for the Scout Promise and law as a life guide. Whereas a ceremony of honor was held to celebrate Patrick Coltrane Young from Boy Scout Troop 310 for attaining his rank of Eagle Scout. Whereas for his Eagle Scout project, Patrick and other volunteers raised over $1,200 to purchase lumber and other supplies and then build and install a bog bridging for 100 feet of trail and refurbished and replaced bog bridging for another 100 feet of trail at the Horton Woods in Saco to benefit the Saco Bay Trails. A total of 197 service hours were spent on this project. In recognition of his achievement, now, therefore, I, Jody L. McPhail, Mayor of Saco, do hereby express my best wishes and congratulations to Patrick Coltrane Young as he embarks on his new adventures in the days ahead. Given under my hand and seal on this day, April 1st, 2024. Patrick, would you like to step up and say a few words?
Thank you for the recognition tonight. It means a lot to get to come here and hear that from the mayor of the town I live in. That's really great honor, and for the project, I really couldn't have done it without any of the help that I received from my parents, volunteers, really just everyone in part of the community that donated bottles, pledged donations of just cash itself. It's really a big project that I couldn't have done without all the help, so thank you to everyone that helped me, and thank you for doing this tonight.
Thank you. Patrick. It's a very special honor we love to present. Okay, that now takes us to item 5, and that is committee correspondence to council. Are there any correspondence? Councilor Berman?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm reporting on behalf of the Shoreline Commission, which met on Thursday, March 28th, and came up with a series of recommendations for what the city can do to address issues along the Saco coastline. Given their importance and for the information of council and the public, I would like to read them in their entirety, so please bear with me. The first recommendation is regarding sand and the beach. Camp Ellis Beach is in desperate need of sand. It was determined there should be at least 30 feet of beach at the high tide mark. The beach is the cornerstone of the community, and businesses that invest in Camp Ellis are reliant on it for the tourist season. To achieve this goal, the city can either add sand or do a beach scraping. A cleanup should be part of this. All remaining shards of the geotubes and wooden fence remnants should be removed. Furthermore, track sand movement by monitoring the University of New England beach mapping project. The timeline for this should be immediate. Regarding the dredge, the city needs to obtain all permits to allow for a dredge by York County in the 2024-25 dredge season. There is still over $150,000 in an account to support and establish a dredge authority. Since the authority is being dissolved, we suggest this money be used to fund permits. Timeline, the 2024-25 State of Maine dredge season. Seawalls. All rock seawalls should be secured and built to maximum height. The timeline should be immediate. Regarding dunes, the city should develop a strategy to rebuild and maintain dunes from Ferry Beach to Goose Fair. The strategy should include beach scraping or additional sand, dune planting material, using living shorelines, and helping residents obtain permits. UNE is building a living shorelines demonstration site and is looking at ways to protect Wood Island, which are relevant to protecting our coast. We should engage them. Community projects are widely encouraged, potentially staffed by students from UNE and Thornton Academy, local resident volunteers, and other interested citizens. The timeline for this is between 2024 and 2026. A coastal resilience coordinator. The Commission supports the hiring of an engineer coastal resilience coordinator. We need somebody to make strategic decisions, look for funding opportunities, and develop and implement a resilience and sustainability strategy. This type of expertise is needed in lieu of the fact that our Public Works Director cannot be asked to take on the additional burden at the expense of the rest of the city. Scarborough has a full-time position in this role, and she's a huge asset. Timeline, hire in the 24-25 fiscal year. A beach management plan. The need for a complete beach management plan is much encouraged. Saco beaches should be as pristine as Old Orchard Beach. The type of regulations so that we can clear seaweed and other debris and maintain sustainability standards, including protection of plovers, would be a major asset. Timeline in 2025. Engineering projects. Pathways to and from the beach should be less of a conduit to allow water onto properties by making them less accessible, zigzagged, or blocked. The idea to close off and protect North Avenue in the winter months is strongly encouraged. That's an ongoing timeline. And lastly, the Commission recommends the city develop and maintain an ongoing plan, and the Army Corps' project is part of it. The Commission is open to participating in such a project. The city's climate plan, which will include recommendations from the SMPDC study, Climate Ready Coast, should be integrated into any coastal resilience strategy. The Shoreline Commission unanimously adopted these recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, not seeing anyone. Moving on to item 6, and that is public comment this evening. We do have one person signed up, and that is Margaret Mills. Please step up to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes to address council.
Thank you very much. My name is Margaret Mills. I live at 168 Simpson Road. I'm a butter of the Ecology School, and I'm here to address concerns about what's before you with the BPI in the Ecology School. Can you all hear me? Okay. I've sat where you sit, and I have had the extreme piles of papers that you have to read through every single week. And the city administrator and the mayor have more to read through than just a lowly ward representative. So you have my sympathies. It is a lot of work. However, when I looked at the agenda today, I didn't realize that the BPI project would be before you. My understanding is many of you may not remember or realize or have known of the work that went before in, say, 2018, when in order to have a site plan approval, the Ecology School was required to fully support the left turn lane onto Simpson Road. They agreed to that. In order to occupy their property, they were required to agree to that before they could open the Ecology School. they did agree to it with the site plan review. I really don't know if most of you know that, because it was a few years ago. But especially with new people on the council or the new city administrator, you may not realize that Ecology School was required to foot the entire bill. They did come before this council and say, would you please submit a BPI to the state, and so that we can have shared funding. And they did come before you and say, would the citizens of Saco also help pay for this? I was not in support of that. Number one, I don't really want the turn lane. I like the rural feel of my street, even though there are many, many new houses there. Increasing traffic will just start eroding even more the sense of a rural spot on Simpson Road. I don't really like the turn lane. Be that as it may, there have been studies about the turn lane, and I am very unhappy that my state taxes of more than $308,000, and my city taxes, not my personal city taxes, but our joint city taxes of more than $308,000 will be paying for this when it was never agreed that my taxes would help pay for this turn lane. It was supposed to be entirely supported by the Ecology School. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peggy. Anyone else wishing to address council?
Hi, good evening. My name is Greg Braun. I'm an attorney at Bergen Parkinson in Kennebunk. I am here on behalf of my client, 321 Lincoln Street Development, to speak in objection to the emergency moratorium on clear cutting of trees, which is before the council this evening. On or about March 24th, my client began cutting a small number of trees at their property located at Lincoln Street. It's my understanding that on or about March 27th or 28th, a request was then made by a council member to prohibit, through an emergency moratorium, any clear cutting of trees within the city limits. The proposed emergency moratorium is both unnecessary and it is not supported by law. As indicated in a letter we submitted in objection to this request earlier today, there are two instances in which state law allows for a municipality to adopt an emergency moratorium. The first is in the instance where a moratorium is necessary to prevent a shortage or an overburden of public facilities. Doesn't seem relevant in this specific question. The second, then, is where there is a failure or a lack of existing laws, ordinances, and statutes to significantly or substantially speak to a serious public harm, right? I argue that that cannot be met or does not exist as it relates to this emergency moratorium request either. First, on information and belief, I don't believe there has been any serious public harm or a specific commercial, residential, or industrial development that has been identified which would necessitate an emergency moratorium being put in place. Second, I must point out that there is substantial law, statute specifically, as it relates to the regulation of clear-cutting trees in the state of Maine. Specifically, Title 12 of Maine law, the Forest Policy and Management Act, right, details and maintains and manages all aspects of forestry policy and clear cutting in the state. Additionally, the Maine Forestry Service has adopted a specific Chapter 20, which outlines and establishes forest regeneration and clear cutting standards. All of these are statewide laws. All of these, every municipality and every resident within a municipality needs to maintain and be in compliance of. So again, I'm here in objection to this emergency moratorium, arguing that no potential serious harm exists and that current state laws that are in place are more than sufficient to speak to any harm that might be identified. Were this council to decide that it should adopt this moratorium, I believe it is incumbent upon you to both be able to identify that substantial risk of harm and identify why those laws and rules that are currently in place are insufficient to speak to or to properly maintain or address those activities. I don't believe that any line or number of facts exist which can, and so again, for that reason, we would ask that you deny and vote to deny the emergency moratorium on clear cutting of trees. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Braun. Any other members of the public wishing to speak?
How you doing? Jason Labonte, builder and developer. So pretty much second everything he said. I actually got Jay Boyer here tonight from Boyer Logging. Every time we have to clear any large parcels for development or anything, there are state standards, that he has to go get permitting on. So we just can't go clear cut whatever we want. So there is a lot of state statutes, and the town's already adopted those state statutes. So we have to get permitting through the state and sign out a ton of forms to do all this. Second of all, lived in Saco my whole entire life, almost 50 years. Looking around, trying to think of what's been clear cut other than my 2 subdivisions. I'm kind of sitting back going like, what is the purpose of a moratorium for 60 days? I don't see any projects really in front of the planning board that would even be subject to that. So if you guys wanted to do something with your ordinance and make modifications, what is the purpose of the moratorium other than to try to stop somebody that's in front of you? I've dealt with this in a couple other towns. Typically, the only time for a moratorium is because you're trying to get in front of somebody else, and I'd like to know what that is. I mean, I don't have any projects, so I have no dog in the fight, but what is the purpose of the moratorium that you couldn't do on a regular time basis? So I'd like to get that information, because as of right now, we're all kind of leading blind. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Inga Brown, and I live at 161 Simpson Road. I have a letter this evening, and after my remarks, I'll give you each a copy of it for the record. So I'm presenting this evening to urge you to delay the following item, action item C, 1 reading, Ecology School Business Partnership Initiative for the left-hand turn lane. Until the council completes its due diligence on this item, as all Saco citizens expect you to perform, the BPI Partnership Initiative is a hasty and poor precedent-setting action item. The turn lane at 112 and Simpson Road was identified as a needed off-site improvement to be completed by the project applicant as part of its 2018 site plan approval. Citizens of Saco should not be asked to shoulder the cost for a private developer's project requirements. For your due diligence, please refer to the June 19th, 2018 site plan condition of approval record for the turn lane component. In my letter, you will find that link, and I'm going to highlight a couple items for you. In that link, I'm going to draw your attention to pages 86 and 89. This is where the Ecology School's traffic consultant, the final memo for the site plan review, Mr. Bill Bray, he showed that the turn lane at 112 and Simpson Road was fully warranted based on the 200 participants that the Ecology School is allowed by the contract zone. And this item was confirmed by the city's independent traffic reviewer, Ms. Diane Morabito. Additionally, in that packet, you will find on pages 124 and 125 the city's third-party independent traffic reviewer's final memo that concurs with Mr. Bray's conclusion that the Ecology School will introduce traffic onto the road at a level to cause the turn lane to be required. That is a planning board site plan condition of approval. In that packet, you will also find on the very last page a report by the Saco Police. Saco Police conducted a traffic analysis using the JAMAR radar. That report shows absolutely no conditions of traffic that were of any concern of any other road. There was nothing that the police had anything to remark on in that report. In October of 2023, this council talked about the BPI and moved forward with the application process. In that meeting packet, on October 16th, 2023, the Ecology School submitted a traffic study that they paid for by Sebago Technics. That report was not reviewed formally by any city staff that I'm aware of, nor was it reviewed by an independent third-party traffic reviewer. Without that review, this report is biased, it is not complete, and you will not be performing your due diligence if you base your BPI vote on this information. So without this level of scrutiny that Saco taxpayers require you and ask you to do, The vote this evening is premature, and I'm asking you to do your due diligence. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Hello, Chelsea Hill, 108 Bradley Street. I'm here tonight to speak off the cuff about the traffic item on your agenda tonight regarding the left turn lane. I want to just share my perspective as a person who lives in downtown Saco and has been asking for more than 2 years for some kind of capital investment to slow traffic down on Bradley Street. It's really painful to see the city so easily find money to support a private entity's obligation when we cannot deal with the traffic in our downtown streets where people are killed. We had 2 people get killed last year in crosswalks. And the fact that we're considering like money that we found in a sofa cushion to spend on an improvement that a private organization was mandated as a part of its business plan to accomplish and to receive its permits is really offensive. It's offensive to people that walk in our town, and it's offensive to kids that want to ride their bikes in our town, that we can't find money to like paint our crosswalks, in like more robust, there's like a special paint that Public Works can talk to you about that's very expensive. We can't find money to use that special type of paint. We have to wait to get into the Maine DOT's 2027 capital plan to make a single intersection safer for people to cross the street, where there's a grocery store and there is UPS and there's Rennie's and there's a school and there's the community center and there's a deli and there's all of these things that we want to access on foot or by bike, and we can't do it because it's not safe. And I would ask that when you take your vote tonight, or if it's in sometime in the future, for this private organization to financially benefit off the back of taxpayers. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with the organization. I think they do great things probably and are very worthwhile and a great community asset, but like they agreed to pay for this themselves, and now they're asking the taxpayers to foot the bill, and that's not fair. The other item I would like to speak on is regarding the clear cutting of trees that you're talking about tonight. I think that to the attorney that spoke earlier, his comments, I believe my understanding of the moratorium is that the city lacks an enforcement mechanism to ensure that trees of the appropriate size are being retained on a given parcel. And I was excited to see this on your agenda because it would kind of like force the city to address the lack of enforcement mechanism. So basically you like trust that whoever is cutting trees down is doing so in good faith and they're only removing the trees that they're supposed to, and you don't really know that that's what's happening. I'm sure that everyone is doing what they're supposed to all the time, but we all know how that goes. So I was excited to see that on the agenda because it was my understanding that the city was going to work to create an enforcement mechanism, like basically a tagging program where you'd be like, okay, what trees are being retained? Yep, okay, we see you're retaining these trees. They've all been marked, and now everything else is going to be cut away, or whatever it is that you guys come up with. So if that's not the case, then I'm not, anyway, I thought that that was the purpose of your emergency moratorium, and I hope that you do vote for the emergency moratorium because the enforcement mechanism, the lack of the enforcement mechanism, is a harm on the public good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jason Bollier with Bollier Logging, third-generation logging contractor. The city of Saco did adopt statewide standards back in the 90s, and all the forestry practices that are done within the city in almost every city there is in Maine is enforced through the forest rangers. They do go around and police us. I just got out of school. We had rules that we had to follow. We go back once a year. Me and my entire crew need to get certified. Better management practices. We just got this the other day. It was last Thursday. That show for water quality. what to do, what not to do. We all need to be certified. If the city were to try to police this themselves, they're gonna have to have their own law enforcement to chase loggers around. Right now, it's all done by state foresters and forest rangers. There are a lot of laws that the average person does not know about tree harvesting and water quality. I think it's gonna be quite a handful for the town to try to police that. Right now, it's all done by state officials that do it all over the entire state. I think it's in York County, it's in Sanford, that the forest rangers police it. Any project other than single tree removals require a forestry operations notification, has to be filed through the state. So if you're clearing just a little stretch in the back of a house, we have to file permits for it. So the state knows what's getting cleared. Any trees that leave the property have that operations notification number on the tickets so they could follow it to the mill so no one could steal timber and not pay for timber. There's quite a lot of information that goes with it. It's not like the average guy can just come over and cut trees and just drag them out and make a mess. I'm not affiliated anyway with that other project, but I just want to let you guys know that there is a lot of laws that we do have to follow. Anything from 5 acres and up for a clear cut, we have to file special permits and they have to come inspect it before we can do it. So our hands, we just can't go in and just do clear cuts. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, please step forward.
Linda Boudreau, South Portland, and Secretary for the Ecology School. I'm here tonight to encourage you to support the $308,000 233 contribution for the 112 lane construction project on Route 112 and Simpson Road. First of all, I want to thank Pat Fox and the council for supporting the BPI application to go forward last October. This was a huge relief for the ecology school. As many of you know, our application back in 2018 has been a painful process. And the ecology school at that time agreed to work with the council on the construction of a left-hand turn lane. And we did, in fact, at the time, post $225,000, the anticipated cost of the project. Unfortunately, with the pandemic, labor shortages, and supply shortages, the price is now in excess of $900,000. Certainly something that a nonprofit is unable to afford. So we appreciate that at this point, we're here tonight with the state of Maine agreeing to pay their 1/3 of $308,222,000. And while we recognize that the city of Saco is in tight budget times, and there are other road projects that probably need work, we would truly appreciate your support with this project. I would like to remind you that this project is not just a benefit to the ecology school. It's a benefit to those new homes we heard spoken of tonight on Simpson Road. It will be a benefit to all the people who traverse Route 112 headed into Buxton or back here into the city of Saco. So I also want to remind you of the benefits of the ecology school. I remember on the night of approval, site plan approval, I said, the city of Saco is going to have a project they should well be proud of and will be recognized for. And I think
each and every one of you has probably read articles in your local paper regarding the ecology school and its contributions. You've read it in statewide news and national news. The ecology school is truly a landmark, notable in the city of Saco. And I hope you'll consider all of those benefits as you take this in discussion tonight. So thank you for your previous support, and we hope we have it as you move forward.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wishing to speak?
Good evening, Justin Hill, 108 Bradley Street. I first want to speak on the moratorium for clear cutting. To the gentleman who's a logger, that is an absolutely crucial part of proper forest management. Absolutely need it. 100% agree the permits in place allow for responsible cultivating. Developers, I have more of a concern about. Loggers, I think, have a vested interest to be responsible and follow laws and follow that. Back to the point of the enforcement mechanism. As far as a developer, I'd be concerned about that. Multiple locations in the city, we know large trees act as basically water silos. They're critical to prevent flooding. I don't know about anyone else. No one has to raise their hand. But in the last 3 months, I've had my basement flood several times. Lived near creeks, everything. Climate change is real. It's continuing to happen. Camp Ellis, this is not going to stop. So those considerations, if we start removing trees, clear cutting in an irresponsible fashion, you're only going to exacerbate that. So that's what I would say. Just a consideration that maybe we need to take a moment to make sure we're being well thought out in how we're addressing that. Second part, I do want to address the ecology school. I agree with the ecology school. I think it's a good thing for the most part. However, supplementing their funding, today I was reading there are 22 states in the United States that require an income above $100,000 to buy a home. Maine is one of those states. At that point, it is a little frustrating, and some others say that your taxes are now going to support a private entity. The other part is approximately 150 feet from my front porch, we had a resident that was struck by a vehicle in February 2022. That person was also killed approximately 6 months ago, I believe. And then we also had another individual killed. So in line with what my wife said, it's kind of offensive to support an entity that's private when we're not doing it for the public good. The other aspect to it is I understand the pandemic was difficult. There's lots of businesses that didn't make it through. There's a lot of small businesses that fell apart. And I don't think anyone was like, well, you know, maybe you should have planned better. No one. There's people who lost homes and businesses, and I feel it'd be kind of hard to justify that. So with that said, I am against funding the left turn hand lane. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you. Okay, that now takes us to item 8, and that is the approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes dated March 18th, 2024?
So moved?
Motion by Counselor Hatch. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Berman. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Okay, roll call vote. Counselor Parks?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
And Counselor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion to approve the minutes passes 6-0. Okay, under section item 8, action items, we do have 3 this evening. Action item A is 1 reading, memorandum of acceptance for the dredge project, and that is Counselor Berman.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Greg Zinzer, the York County manager, indicated York County would be interested in operating the dredge on behalf of the communities. In order to proceed, York County would like to have a memorandum of agreement with each city and town that intends to work with them on this matter. The City Council hereby authorizes City Administrator John Bohenko to sign and enter into the memorandum of agreement between the County of York and the City of Saco regarding the York County's dredge on behalf of the City of Saco.
Motion has been made by Councilor Berman. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Councilor Hatch. Any discussion on the motion? Councilor Berman.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, thank you. I just want to say, as I've said before, that protecting our coast against erosion is an absolutely critical matter, urgent and timely. As part of those efforts, the city has signed a project partnership agreement with the Army Corps of Engineers to build a spur jetty that will help protect the coast. But the addition of sand into Camp Ellis Beach and along our coastline is an absolutely critical part of that plan. It's the sand that pushes back the wave breaks and also acts as a sacrifice for the wave energy coming in to protect our hard structures, including our houses and roads, from that erosion. Thus, I think this dredge is an absolutely essential part of our long-term resilience plan. While the initial idea was to start a Southern Maine Dredge Authority, I think having York County operate the dredge will actually ensure more timely commencing of the dredging and also better management on behalf of our communities. So I'm fully in support of York County's efforts here and encourage the city and my councilors to support this memorandum of agreement.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Johnston?
Thank you. I certainly can't disagree with Councilor Berman's concerns. I do, however, still have some reservations with this in the sense that when this began several years ago, the way this was delivered to us council members was, again, it was going to be a quasi-governmental agency that was going to care for this. Obviously, things have happened, and we're in a different situation today, and clearly the county now owns it. And so I will support the memorandum because I view it as relatively non-binding, but I don't like the lack of detail here. I mean, you know, to Councilor Berman's point, yes, we have issues with coastal erosion, but I also recognize that we don't have an endless purse or wallet. And the sheer fact that we're entering into something with real no understanding of what the repercussions could be financially or just liabilities for this municipality, other municipalities, all those situations have always been a concern for me. So I try to be consistent in that regards. So I will support it, but I look to Barnstable County, which is what this model is modeled after, and I spent time 2 weekends ago looking at their budget, and that thing has ballooned in the last 2 to 3 years. And while we're not Barnstable County, I am concerned that 14 out of 15 of those communities actually need a dredge. We're here with 7 out of 20 some odd. And not understanding what that mechanism is to fund. Is this going to be a county fund? It's going to come out of our taxes to the county? Or is this going to pay for play type scenario? I can just see, 10 years of experience here, how this can balloon out, and a future council will be sitting here with a $1 million annual budget. And that's something I'd like to avoid, if at all possible. So, like I said, I'll support it. I know people have worked on it, but we really got to figure out what we're doing here before putting this in and just going to work. And I know that's an unpopular comment, but I just, you got to have that cart or the horse before the cart and not vice versa. So, thank you.
City Administrator Bohenko?
Thank you, Your Honor. I don't disagree with Councilor Johnson. I think he makes some good points. The thing about it getting started with the memorandum of agreement is, as you stated, it does not have any significant exposure for the city. One of the things that I will be looking at and certainly would bring to the city council before we enter and sign anything that would encumber funds by the city, we'll probably have a more detailed agreement. And that agreement will spell out everything that's required of the city. I do not expect that York County will fold that into their general obligation to the rest of the county, I think it's going to end up being, if you will, a situation where there will be an ability to pay for the dredging that needs to be done on a case-by-case basis. So yes, there will be a lot of due diligence when it comes to a final agreement, and we will spend time on that. This, like I said, Mrs. Inzer was trying to get an understanding of the number of communities that might be interested, and this gives him at least a pretty good feeling as to who has a serious interest in the county doing the dredge. As they indicated in the memorandum of agreement, getting the dredge in the water, getting it up to wells, is all going to be at the expense of the county at this particular point. So we'll keep you advised as to, I only been to 2 meetings on this, so we'll keep you advised as to what types of exposure that the city might expect, and we will do our due diligence as it comes along.
Yep, Councilor Johnson.
Thank you. The only other comment I have is, again, Councilor Berman had read from Coastal Waters Commission about the, I guess, for lack of a better term, earmarked 150,000. Just want to be clear that if that is to be expended, that has to come back to council, because that's not what we initially had intended to spend it on. It was going to that dredge authority, not the county. So that's a transfer of funds.
I fully understand that, Councilor.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes, Councilor Johnson also, I didn't want to interrupt. No, okay, okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to make a couple of points. First of all, I want to give credit to the gentlemen and the ladies that were associated with SOS and their affiliates that did the legwork going to towns and cities up and down York County, getting support for earlier memorandum that got us to the point where the county, by a split vote, if memory serves, agreed to take this on. So the idea that we had to have the authority because the county was not enthusiastic about even having the dredge, and here we're to the point several months later when it turns out that because it was ARPA funds and because of the red tape involved, that getting the authority up and running is not really feasible, and that the county realized that they actually have an asset and something that they can use to basically serve its member communities, I think is a nice 180 that anyone ever criticizes, government, how it works, though, getting a bunch of bureaucrats to realize that, wait a minute, we actually have something good here, and something good can come out of it. And to have a county dredge authority essentially in the county commissioners and staff themselves, I think is a little bit more prudent than having, well, in terms of accountability, it's definitely prudent, though. I mean, Southern Dredge Authority, or Southern Maine Dredge Authority, whatever it was going to be called, was essentially forming organically, and it never really came to us in terms of who was going to be on it and what the structure was going to be, though. So in terms of, and that always gave me a little bit of a pause, so to see the situation where the county is enthusiastic about getting in the water, the folks in Wells are going to be already going to make some use of it in a couple of weeks. It just goes to show you that, the days of standing at attention are pretty much over, though, and that now that we have a county willing to use it and towns willing, hopefully like ours, willing to enter into understandings, because certainly, I mean, as I told Commissioner Chinette, I mean, at the end of the day, it was kind of our idea. So to see all these, pillars sort of falling into place, though, I think is a positive thing, and I think going forward, nothing but sky's the limit. But in terms of the funding, that's definitely something we'll have to keep an eye on, though, because the last thing we want to do is see it balloon out if other towns, realizing that there is no authority, all of a sudden stand back, though. But of course, that's just, to use a phrase that's been used tonight, that's us doing our due diligence, and we certainly will do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, not seeing any members wishing to be recognized. Roll call vote. Councilor Parks?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt?
Yes.
And Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Now takes us to item B, and that is one reading, the emergency moratorium on clear cutting of trees, and that is assigned to Councilor Hatch.
Thank you, Mayor McPhail. With the encouragement from several members of this body, I have requested that the city enact an emergency ordinance to establish a 61-day moratorium on clear cutting of trees throughout the city of Saco as outlined in the attached emergency ordinance. The purpose of this ordinance is to provide time to draft, revise, and present for council approval a more complete regulatory scheme regulating the clear cutting of trees, all as a codification and amendment of Chapter 204 of the City Code. Be it found by the Saco City Council that an emergency exists, and therefore be it ordered that the city adopt the emergency moratorium ordinance on clear cutting of trees, and that during the time the moratorium is in effect, and except for any lots that are already subject to a state of Maine timber harvesting permit or an approved forest management plan, no person, party, or legal entity may clear cut more than 2 acres of trees on any lot in the city of Saco.
Motion has been made by Councilor Hatch. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Johnston. Any discussion? Councilor Hatch?
Thank you, Mayor McPhail. Just want to give a little bit of background on how we got to this point. The issue of our current ordinance's ability to properly manage and enforce clear cutting has been around for years. I'll defer to Councilor Johnson to discuss some of the issues that occurred during the ZORS process. And it continues to this day, and it's kind of been latent. But I am the city council, the planning board liaison for the city council, and on March 19th, I was away. I was on business in Vermont, but I was able to watch the planning board activities via the YouTube feed. And that evening, we had a project come before the planning board that included, and I'm going to quote directly from the planner's memo here, the proposal, which is off Route 5 in Saco, the RC district. The proposal is over 169 acres of land with a proposed developed area of 96.6 acres, which is effectively being proposed to be clear cut for the installation of solar panels. And so for the first time, I think, at least in my mind, I felt that we're on this precipice of harm, if you will, which was mentioned earlier. So that's the precipitating factor here for this. And so I think this clear-cutting issue, I don't know, was thoroughly vetted during ZORS. It's my understanding that the Conservation Commission has wrestled with this issue time and time again, and that I think the issue is citywide. I think if I challenged each one of us here on the dais, I would suggest that most of us, maybe not all of us, I look to my colleagues to the left here, but the rest of us could probably identify areas of our respective wards that would be susceptible to this clear-cutting risk. I know I've identified 3 parcels in my ward alone that could certainly fall into this category. And it's good to have rules, but I think we recognize in this day and age that not everybody complies with the rules, so we want to make sure the rules are fair, they're effective, and they can be enforced. And I think that's the dimension of our current ordinance that I think we just need to call a timeout. And I'm very confident that our city administrator with city staff, planning staff, can vet this issue, see what we have in our ordinance. We have some rules in our ordinance, what we don't have, and come back to us with some recommendations for amendments to the zoning ordinance, which specifically addresses clear cutting. I think it's, I'm going to get you a chapter and verse here. It's chapter 230, section 810, talks about clearing and removal of vegetation. I think that's the segment of the zoning ordinance that would require some attention. I also have, as I thought about this risk, there are issues relative to our comprehensive plan that we need to seriously take a look at, because our comp plan was approved after the ZORS process. We already know that there are some disconnects that we can work on. We need to be in harmony with our zoning ordinance. And if you look at the comp plan, it's section 5 is devoted exclusively to environmental stewardship. And I'm going to quote it, it's right out of our comp plan. Policy 5-3, support agriculture and forestry resources and encourage their economic viability. And strategy A of that section says, review rural conservation zoning standards, which is the zone in which this project is being proposed, to ensure they align with the community's vision for future growth in North Saco and adequately protect critical natural resources. And so I'm not opposed to cutting trees. Okay? It's a normal course of development. What I am concerned about is the management and enforcement of that process. And frankly, we have a developer here, goes through planning board, he goes through site plan review, he goes through subdivision review. The planning board, I think, does a pretty good job of talking about screening and keeping trees and planting a few more trees. What concerns me is that we have this open-ended opportunity, and I'm going to defer to Councilor Gunn, but I know that he has a couple of examples in his own ward where this has been a problem in the past. So that's the nature of the request. A little time out. Let's make sure that we're in a good place. Let's make sure that we're in a good place with our ordinance. We're in a good place with, in conjunction with our comp plan, that we're respectful of environmental concerns, and then get it done, and that should be the end of it. So I guess that's my spiel.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Johnston?
Thank you. I think Councilor Hatch did a phenomenal job at summarizing it, the need for it. I guess, again, from my perspective, this really is a long-standing issue to some degree. I guess that's, a matter for interpretation, or it's up to, it's a subjective viewpoint, I guess. But it's certainly not, at least from my standpoint, about one individual project. For me, this first, arose, I want to say it was the 2017-18 update for the comp plan, real low-lying, recognizing that I thought there was some weaknesses in the ordinance. We went through the ZORS process. It was still there. It was one of the things that, for lack of a better term, just kind of got lost in the shuffle. And then, what was it, June, I think, we did the solar moratorium, and it was at that time that, from the dais, I raised issue to the city planner, inquiring, did we have anything in place? And it was clear then that there wasn't anything in place to really prevent a property owner, a developer, prior to an application from going in and cutting trees, whether it's clear cutting or just removing trees in general. And I viewed that, again, we like to think that everybody's going to follow our ordinances and whatever state standards are there, but the way I read it is nothing prevents certain things from happening. So I don't think this is anything new. Last summer I looked, what was out there, and found that many states outside of Maine have local ordinances in place that has some level of tree protection. And again, Saco has some, but it's once an application is accepted. And I would argue that I think there probably needs some more strengthening in that regards. But South Portland just enacted a tree protection ordinance, I want to say the 1st of January or somewhere thereabouts. I remember reading it in the paper, really touching upon what we're touching, upon tonight. So there's examples, and as I'm sure Councilor Gunn, you've got several forested lots or were forested lots that have been cleared, but the one that comes to mind immediately is the one off the Flag Pond Road. They got a zone change, and immediately they just went and stripped it. You can argue that, well, I own it, I can do what I want with my land, but I believe we're all stewards of the land, certainly at our level. Now it just sits vacant, and barren. How many animals did you displace to other people's yards? For what? Nothing at this point. It's one thing if you're doing a project, it's another thing just to do it. So, yeah, I don't know. It's oftentimes I feel like there's a lot of double speak where it's like, oh, we care about climate change, and then we go and propose cutting up the single thing that gives us oxygen. So I look forward to, again, spending 61 days to craft something that's, more appropriate than what we have on the books today.
Thank you. Councilor Gunn?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I won't add too much that's already been mentioned, though, but other than to just want to put out there, out of everybody who's up here on the council, I think I've made it a point of being a proponent of property rights. And, Saco has a reputation, fairly or unfairly, of basically a lot of folks making other people's business their business, and it's always rubbed me the wrong way. But that being said, when you have a community that's this close and where people have a viable input into what we want to be as a city, that's where our home rule authority that's granted to us as an incorporated chartered city from the state comes into play. And yes, there are state regulations, but at the same time, our ability to legislate locally sometimes lacks. Otherwise, South Portland, a city that you could make the arguments even more a bedroom community than we are, felt the need to put in an ordinance for this type of thing, though. So I don't think, under the circumstances, I don't think it's a big ask. And again, by reputation, I'm no fan of moratoriums, so I think everyone up here knows that. But to Councilor Johnson's point, about 10 months ago, we had nothing for freestanding solar. And we tasked the planning department with coming up with the regulations. They went through the process, timely matter, and it was done through compromise, done through planning board, done through plenty of people talking about it, and we have a ordinance for solar that makes perfect sense for a city of our size, our needs, and our basically combination of residential, rural, and the need for anyone to have commercial solar. So when it comes to developers, again, yes, it's your property. However, if you're any developer, if they're in whatever situation where we don't know for certain that something's going to go in there because of outside factors, does it not behoove us to protect the trees on that property? Because, yeah, they can sell it to anyone they want, but, I think anyone who's marginally pro-environmental will be like, well, wouldn't it be a little bit more viable to sell a lot that's already full of trees as opposed to selling a lot that's completely mowed down, and what do you do with that? And again, in terms of just environmental stewardship, that's just common sense. So in terms of, again, to Councilor Hatch's point, just having all our ducks in a row, having an ordinance that makes sense for Saco so we do not end up in a situation where we have these mowed down sections of the city that nothing gets done on, regardless if the person still has title on the land or not. I don't think that's a big ask. And again, this is coming from somebody who does not like telling private owners what to do with their land, though. But if we're talking about the city as a whole, characters of the city as a whole, I'm willing to put take a philosophical leap, though. Philosophical purity will just, You hate the way the country's run, though. That's where you're seeing philosophical purity at its worst, though. So being able to take a situation and look at it pragmatically, as I've done, that's why I got to support this moratorium on its face, though, for the simple point that, gives our planning departments time to come up with something that's fair and equitable and makes sense for our city. And I really don't think that's a big ask. End of speech.
Thank you. Councilor Berman?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I am a fan of the environment, and I am a fan of trees, and I am opposed to clear cutting. And those who I've sat with on the Conservation Commission will know that I've strongly supported the need for strengthened tree ordinances in the city and have suggested that the Conservation Commission work on that, and if they're not the right group, then others do, because I fully agree with my fellow councilors on the harm caused by clear cutting and the need for strong regulation in order to regulate the harvesting of timber. Where I do run into a little bit of problem with this ordinance, and where I get a little bit confused, is on the need for an emergency moratorium in order to buy that time and to have those discussions. I mean, frankly, I agree with Councilor Johnston that this is a long-standing problem. It's existed last week, it existed last month, it existed last year, it probably existed last decade. And what I fail to understand is what the emergent situation is that requires us to enact with a moratorium. We can certainly craft a tree ordinance, as many of our fellow communities have done, and we need to, and I strongly urge us to, but I don't understand what the emergent situation is that requires this moratorium in order to allow us time to do so. The Planning Department and the Conservation Commission can work together to craft that ordinance in the course of regular business. And in fact, when I read the emergency ordinance, what I see is references to unregulated clear cutting. But I think we've heard testimony tonight that clear cutting is not unregulated. In fact, it's pretty well regulated by the states and some city code. While the enforcement mechanisms, I guess, have come into question, clearly unregulated isn't the word to use. Moreover, while I see very critical and important issues raised in the ordinance, issues that I very strongly agree with, what I don't want to confuse is important and critical with emergent. Those are two separate things. Regulating the cutting of trees and protecting our environment is critical and it's important, but I don't see it's different today than it was yesterday or the week before or will be next week. And so my question isn't at all about the need for a tree ordinance. It's about whether an emergency moratorium is needed in order to achieve those goals. And frankly, I'm just not sure that burden has been met here, which lends me to perhaps not support this emergency ordinance.
Thank you. Councilor Hewitt?
I just have a question. I worry that after the meeting we went to last week in Portland that talked about the need for housing in southern Maine, that as a city, we need to make sure we're not inhibiting the opportunities for the appropriate housing. And being this time of year, springtime is a great time for construction. And many of the construction industries are very weather dependent, that if we put this moratorium in place right now, we're going to have a considerable impact on the building that could go on in our town. So something to consider.
Thank you. Councilor Hatch?
Thank you, Mayor McPhail. I just wanted, maybe I can address Councilor Hewitt's concern. The ordinance does not preclude any planning board activity. Subdivisions can go through the process, and any approved plans are going to be exempt from the moratorium, so I'm not sure there's a connection there to your concern. And then I guess to Councilor Berman's concern relative to emergency, I personally think that when you're looking at a situation in front of us, because it's been proposed, that we have an entity stepping forward to clear-cut 57% of 169 acres of land, I think that rises to the same level as a moratorium for recreational marijuana and an emergency moratorium on a solar panel in somebody's front yard. So I find it very difficult to agree that this emergency situation is any less than the two that I just cited.
Thank you. Councilor Johnston?
Thank you. Yeah, that's what I was going to comment. I think the whole language of emergency in the state law and all these ordinances is again, it's subjective. It's this body that determines what is and isn't an emergency. And I certainly can, respect your opinion, Councilor Berman. But like I said, when it was down in your ward, a neighbor complaining about a solar panel in front of their house because it was casting shadows, we supported it, thinking it was an emergency. I had a hard time really making that connection, but I understood that to that individual it was an emergency. Or the same with the marijuana issue. Unfortunately, as Councilor Hatch has indicated, we do know of a potential 100-plus acre parcel that could be severely impacted. And I will say that when we discussed solar arrays during the ZORS process or subsequent to that, that was one of my biggest fears. Like I didn't have an issue with putting solar panels or a solar farm on open rolling, hillsides, but it kind of defeats the point when you go in and you cut up 100 acres of trees to put up solar panels. I mean, it's ridiculous from my perspective, and I'd like to avoid that. And that was my concern, is that you have this developmental pressure where these companies, quite honest, they could care less about our town. They're there to make money. That's the problem with all these alternative energies, green energies. They're, hey, you've got an ordinance, first foot to the door. Before, we didn't have an ordinance that didn't allow it, so it was regulated in that sense. So the minute we put something on paper, it was unabated. It was just come through and do what you want. I don't want to look back when I'm 80 and go, oh, I did that to Saco. I already do that at 40. I look around and go, oh, we let that one go, or we missed that. And I think, certainly over the last 2 years and the next year and 2.5 years going forward, there's many things I'd like to address from council level that is similar to this that I recognize as weaknesses throughout our ordinances. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, not seeing anyone. Roll call vote. Councilor Parks?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
No.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt?
No.
Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-2. Okay, that now moves us on to item C, and that is one reading, College School Business Partnership Initiative, BPI, for the left turn lane on Route 112, and that is going to be Councilor Gunn. Nope.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On October 16, 2023, the council approved city participation in the Route 112 turn lane construction project and directed staff to apply for the Maine Department of Transportation Business Partnership Initiative, or BPI, grant program. Furthermore, council's motion capped city participation in this project to be $308,233 of the estimated $924,700 total project cost. On March 20th, Saco received notification from MDOT that the BPI application request has been approved. I move to approve the city's financial contribution of up to $308,233 to the Route 112 turn lane construction project in the fiscal year 2025 budget process. City Council. A separate vote? That's okay.
You can read it together.
Thank you. The City Council hereby authorizes City Administrator John Bohinko to sign and enter into the business partnership agreement between the Maine Department of Transportation and the City of Saco regarding the Saco Ecology School Route 112 left turn lane to Simpson Road construction project on behalf of the City of Saco.
Thank you. A motion has been made by Councilor Gunn. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Berman. Any discussion? Counselor Johnston, then Counselor Hatch.
Thank you. Goodness. So, probably not surprisingly, or maybe surprisingly, I'm going to be consistent on this. And so we go back to October or 2022 or 2019 or 2018. It was pretty clear to me what the expectation was as I sat there as a planning board liaison, and this requirement was again borne onto the ecology school by the planning board. There was no indication that Saco taxpayers would be paying for this, nor city staff participating in really any level of administering the project. So, I mean, that really hasn't changed for me, has been indicated by members of the public and myself many times from this dais. We have plenty of other needs in this community, particularly in the downtown, where we repeatedly say, oh, we want to increase density and we want people to live there, yet we just do lip service to it. And on the daily basis, I watch people almost get hit by cars, can't cross the street, sidewalks that are in disrepair. It's an absolute embarrassment, to be quite honest with you all, to look out my window, look down Elm Street, a gateway into your community, and I just see ripsaw sidewalks everywhere. We have a development district for that. We spend it elsewhere. So again, the idea that we're going to ask taxpayers to pony up funds for a turning lane, as far as I'm concerned, is not necessary. If we would just have not gone down this path in the first place, we wouldn't be here. So I don't know. I think I said it back in October. This is, it's a Marine Corps term. It's a death by 1,000 cuts, right? And I've said this from day one with this contract zone. It was just a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, and it just grows and grows and grows. And every time around, we're trying to fix something. As I said previously, what's next? Sidewalks, breakdown lanes, a traffic light? That should be the responsibility of the taxpayer of Saco? Yeah, I just can't justify the expenditure nor the staff time and commitment to this. I'm not saying that the ecology school isn't a great asset. They clearly, provide great education. I think that we all support. I think we all agree that ecology is good and what they're teaching is good. But, to continually hear, oh, we're a nonprofit, yet then I discover recently we've acquired, or TESS has acquired additional land and another property to the tune of $570,000 that a loan was involved, but yet there's no money to fund a turning lane. Okay. I don't know about the rest of you, but I have that. It's a hard pill to swallow for me. So, like I said, consistent with my vote in October, this would be a no for me. And I will remind council that, as I indicated back in October, that wasn't a budgetary amendment. This, however, is. This is a transfer of funds. We are, allocating funds from, I don't know where because it hasn't been indicated, but we are allocating funds, or at least authorizing the city manager or city administrator to spend those funds and enter into this agreement, and it will require 5 yeses. So keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Hatch.
Thank you, Mayor McPhail. I'm not going to repeat what my colleague just said, but that's been my history with this as well. It's a responsibility of a developer to fund their development requirements. I really have no appetite of trying to find $308,000 when we have many other pressing issues that are likely more important to our constituents. I'm not excited about tying up staff time on a project that we shouldn't have been tying up staff time. So I, as well, am going to be consistent with my October vote of no on this, and it has nothing to do with the quality and integrity of the ecology school. It has everything to do with fiscal responsibility to our taxpayers, and making sure that as good stewards of the limited amount of funds that we have, we allocate them appropriately to issues that are of more relevance to their needs. So I will be voting no on this.
Thank you. Councilor Berman?
Yeah, I guess I'll offer the alternative perspective. This has been in front of council now several times, as previously referenced. This left turn lane for the ecology school has seemed to be a constant sore point. We've heard from neighbors, we've heard from the community, we've heard from many people about the need for this left turn lane, about the role that increased traffic has on disrupting the neighborhood, and that in order for the safe movement of traffic, this left turn lane is required. This is a state road. There's been new houses and construction along the road. This is now a major corridor, Route 112, into Buxton. To me, this BPI represents the most elegant, clearest, shortest path towards meeting these needs. We've seen updated traffic studies that even without ecology school traffic, a left turn lane would be warranted now. To vote no on this, to turn down state funding, to further delay this project, just keeps us in front of council, keeps it as a sore point, and disrupts this smooth movement of traffic that everyone seems to believe is necessary and required. While I don't love the cost, here the state is paying a third, which frankly I think is the best deal we're going to get. So I urge us to support this.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Gunn?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To Councilor Berman's point, you know, a third, and a third is pretty fair for the situation, considering that, again, I mean, I don't know the thinking of the ecology school and their leadership, though, but I mean, I feel like we're all talking, a lot of us out here in the audience and sometimes up here, kind of talking in circles a little bit on it, because there's disagreement about the need for the turns, the left turn lane to begin with, based on different interpretations of the traffic up there, or what it could do to Simpson Road or could not do to Simpson Road. But at the same time, it's a contract zone requirement, so therefore the ecology school doesn't do it. They're in some sort of legal sort of limbo. And to Councilor Berman's point, this is a way to put the thing to bed under a fair and equitable situation. And I just got to say, you know, ecology school's been around for a little while, and what they do is phenomenal. And I guess, you know, for a community that spends so much time and effort promoting Thornton Academy, pointing to it as a jewel of our city, something to encourage people and families to move here with their kids through the system. I'm noticing this disconnect where we treat Thornton Academy as this jewel, and we're treating ecology school as this entity. And it's starting to rub me the wrong way, though, because, I mean, go back one vote that we just took, though. We took that vote based on predominantly ecological means, the idea of preserving our environment from just unregulated clear cutting, or lack of a better term. So to see a educational institution, through really no fault of their own, be put in a situation where, you know, well, actually, it is kind of, well, again, maybe going back to what I said, maybe it is a little bit of fault of their own by agreeing to the contract zone in the first place. But the fact is, we as a council went through the process to try to get the most equitable solution to this, and we have, as a council, offered our support to many different entities, not just educational. So the idea that we would just, you know, pull it back at this section, at this point, at the last moment, after we've gotten the best deal possible out of the state, I think, I don't want to say it's intentional bad faith, but I'm just saying it really does not behoove a strong relationship with an organization that I think going forward is going to be just as viable to this community as Thornton or any other institution, and I don't think it's particularly wise. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Johnson?
Thank you. Just for the record, and you can go back and check, when you mentioned Thornton Academy and Councilor Gunn, I've been consistent with that subject too, and so I just want that to be clear. All organizations, whether it was Thornton Academy, the Ecology School, or a business, I weighed them against, pros and cons, and, the chips fell where they may. But specifically with Thornton Academy, they have been before this council as I've sat here, and they got the same level of treatment when it came to, as I did with the ecology school, asked for a pilot tax program. I didn't get council support, but I asked Thornton Academy too. So just want that to be clear. Thank you.
Counselor Hatch?
Thank you, Mayor McPhail. I'm going to make a proposed amendment to this motion out of respect for the public comment relative to this council exercising more due diligence on the traffic study. So I am going to ask to amend the motion and move to table the city's financial contribution, this vote on this financial contribution, so that we have time to reassess that traffic study. So I wanted to get that on the floor and hope we get a second.
Okay, motion to table has been made by Counselor Hatch. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Hewitt. Roll call vote. Counselor Parks?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
And Counselor Johnston. Motion to table passes 5-1.
So, Your Honor, may I speak?
Yes.
So primarily with taking that out of the motion, I essentially cannot sign the agreement with the state. So what you've essentially done, which is fine, is tabled everything. So we will have to check back with the state relative to timeline, and if the grant expires, I'll have to check tomorrow, but I just wanted to be clear with the city council that what you did, the action you did, basically puts everything on hold.
Counselor Johnston?
Am I reading this correctly that this project has been approved for the current state fiscal year, 2024?
Let's see. Yeah, we have it in here. Let's see. It must be. I'm not really sure how the BPI works. I don't know if Director Fox, do you have anything you could add to that?
I mean, my assumption is if council was to approve this, it's probably likely they want to get moving on it.
Well, again, I think it might be that there might be some deadlines that we would have to adhere to so that if we don't take it, they could redirect the money.
Okay, just for clarification purposes, though, how much discussion can we have where it's been tabled?
The tabling's already taken place.
Okay, this is,
So.
okay.
I did reach out to DOT, just not knowing where this conversation would go tonight, to try to be ready for as many questions or pivots on this. But so I don't have an answer back for how long we have to accept or reject the assumption is once you apply, that's why we did the October thing, once you apply, you're going to accept the funds when you get notice of award. So we got notice of award, we have this, you have 18 to 36 months basically to start construction. What I can't tell you is how long we have to tell DOT whether we are or are not signing this agreement. I tried to get clarification before this meeting, I could not. So the funds are available now, essentially, and then we have 18 to 36 months from the signing of this agreement, but I don't know how long they'll hold those funds. So I'll be reaching out to DOT staff to at least let them know the status of it. And we'll talk about what level of traffic review, if that is what the deciding factor is for this, and then move forward. The other option, I guess, when it comes back is what level, if there's a financial contribution discussion to be had. Basically, the state and the city sign the agreement. The sub-agreement with the ecology school determines what the financial contribution is. We tried to nail that down in the October vote. That's why we added the financial component to that, so staff would have some direction of where we were going. But if that gets revisited, whatever the sub-agreement is between the city and the ecology school could be talked about to at least still leverage the state funds. But I'll try to get all those deadlines for you. before it comes back.
Thank you, Director Fox.
Thank you. Councilor Johnston?
Thank you. Pat just
Yeah,
walked away.
Pat, just you get my.
Director Fox?
Obviously, all these questions should have been asked prior to our vote, but what level, I mean, I read this, I'm rereading it, and it seems clear to me that really this is an agreement between the city of Saco and the state, with the ecology school as basically a subordinate party. Have they given any indication to date that they have $300 and something thousand to put towards this project?
Well, prior to the signing of the agreement with the city, there's a sub-agreement that'll occur that we talked about back in October, to make sure there's a sub-agreement between because the only financial responsible party to the state or to carry out this project is the city. But it's the sub-agreement that, and the proving of financial capacity between the ecology school and the city that occurs as a separate agreement. There's a draft that exists for that. But we don't sign, we have a sub-agreement with the business party, and then only once that is finalized do we sign the agreement with the state. So if you wanted to do a different financial mix between, the state's just going to reimburse us for expenses up to $308,000. What the sub-agreement says between the city and the business entity is not, the state does not have concerns over what that is.
Right, just cutting the check for the $308,000.
Yeah.
Councilor Berman?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, if I'm understanding this conversation correct, and Director Fox, tell me if I am or not, that, well, in the page 12 of the packet, I guess, it lists the developer share, municipal share, and a state share. In terms of the BPI, the state share is fixed, but the municipal share and the developer share is subject to a subaward contract with the ecology school, and those numbers could vary if council so determined.
That's what we tried. We were trying to get that just so that this agreement with the state, I mean, again, the state doesn't, but the traditional BPI is a third, a third, a third, but the state is only concerned about their third, and that the city meets all the checks and balances of a administered project. So yes, if you look back to the October packet, there were sort of three choices outlined at the time that we were trying to kind of nail down, and I recognize there's a couple new counselors now. One of the reasons why we had to make sure to bring this back for clarification and signature, and it still needs funding. So the October one was to submit an application, but it had no dollars. It was not a 2024 budget amendment. So given the timing of the notice, which we just received last week, and we're in the middle of the 2025 budget, and none of these funds would be expended till 2025, that's why we tried to rush and get this to you so that you can consider the financial part of it as you're putting together your 2025 budget, because we did not have it, I did not have it to provide to the city administrator. So it's not in the capital plan right now for 2025.
Thank you. And just a follow-up question, I think, to the city administrator. If I'm also reading the motion correct, this actually is not a motion to allocate funds. This is a motion to add the funds into the 2025 budget, and the fund expenditure would be approved as part of that budget process.
That is correct.
Thank you.
I would disagree with that wording then, based on the motion. It seems clear to me that we're asking the city to make a financial contribution. That's a budget amendment. We've gone through this process. I have a legal opinion from Mr. Murphy on it. And I'm going to be a stickler about it, because in the past, we've just kind of moved money around, and it's always, not something I approve of. It's not how it's supposed to work. That's why it needs 5 votes, not, simple majority.
I don't think we're disagreeing with you. I think it's just, coming at it from two ways. During the budget process, we would put forward that would have to be voted on by the city council.
It would be an amendment to the current budget process.
Yeah, and that needs a vote of the city council.
Correct.
Correct.
But
that's
having it before us tonight. I
You see what I'm
stand
saying?
corrected. No, I see what the FY 2025. Yeah. Thank you.
I think that's it. I think we got a direction.
Okay, so
What's the direction? We tabled it.
Well, no, the direction that I see, if I'm not mistaken, is that we're supposed to go back and check with the state relative to a timeline as we have to enter into this agreement. That's number one. Number two, what I understand is that there is another look at the traffic pattern out there. If I'm not mistaken, that was Councilor Hatch that wanted us to take another look at that. And number three, I think we will be checking in with the state just to confirm that they don't, as Director Fox said, they're coming up with $308,000. So if somebody buys a Powerball ticket and gives us $308,000 if they win, I mean, certainly there would be that money available. So I think it's really, the one issue now is the $308,000 that the city would have to provide through a budget process.
Well, again, I would just add that the fact that I understand the state has endless money, and apparently the city of Saco has endless money, but the third party has not indicated they have the funds to even match this, and they haven't all along. So we've been kind of going since October with the assumption that I guess we're going to enter into this, and I go back to the language here where, and this was where I was stuck upon, City Council authorized the city administrator to enter into this agreement. This entering into this agreement is telling the state that I'm giving $308,000 to it. I consider that a budget amendment. So.
Correct. And so what I would say is, I think we have some direction, and we'll try to get this back to the city council to have a vote one way or another, because I think on the 16th of October, the council directed the staff to go after the grant, which we did in due diligence, and then we have the grant that was awarded. So tonight, there was a tabling, and as I said, we're going to go back to the state to make sure we know what the timeline is for the grant to determine if it will expire. We will then also look at some of the traffic issues over there and confirm what we probably already know. And then third, what we will do is talk to the ecology school. That's what I think we're going to do. I mean, so, and then at some point, we'll come back to the city council, and then you'll have to remove it from the table and vote.
I appreciate the clarification. I guess my long-standing issue has been with councils, this one, prior councils, we make tabling motions just indefinitely. That's really not Robert's rules.
Right,
like,
right. And
we have to set some form of date, and not just, this is how we got here. This is how it's gone on for 5, 6, 7 years with this or a variety of subjects. So, I mean, I'll leave it at your discretion, but I don't want this hanging out there until October.
No, I agree with you. The council should make a date certain. I mean, historically, that's what I've always been taught to do.
Yeah,
you table it with a date certain. That way, there's a determination that by this date, we have to get you that information, and it's going to be on the agenda. So, quite frankly, I think we should have probably put a date certain. I would recommend going forward, anytime anything's tabled, you put a date certain on it, and if the council, if the city staff doesn't have the information available by that date, it comes in and with a recommendation to continue the tabling until another date certain. So that way, you are correct. It will get taken care of.
Thank you.
Councilor Hassan, Councilor Gunn.
Thank you, Mayor McPhail. So I just wanted to publicly indicate that it was not my intention to table this indefinitely. I expected that we would take this back as quickly as possible. So whatever that is, you know, I'm thinking, I don't know if we can wrap this up for the next council meeting, but whatever works, as soon as possible.
Yeah, tabling motion is not for indefinite. It is to get the information requested by council, and it will be brought back.
Madam Mayor.
Councilor Gunn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Not to prolong this any more than it has been, but would not be prudent, since we are under Robert's rules, that Councilor Hatch move to sort of untable what he already did, which, because it's the same meeting, and then retable it with specific language. That way, we're not playing by the seat of our pants, and we're actually following the Robert's rules. That's been often stated very much so recently. So, I mean, that seemed to be negate any of the legal fuzziness of the situation.
That can be done?
Well, you would have to make a motion to reconsider, and then you'd have to go through all that. But I would suggest, this is just a suggestion, is we'll have it back to you before the end of the budget process. How's that? Is that okay? Because we're going to have to deal with various agencies, and then, go ahead, Director Fox.
I fully would like to get this back to you before I even do the capital presentation on the 22nd of April. The problem is, and that'll be fine to get the answers on how long we have to consider this and get the problem is that really whether or not the turn lane was warranted with or without additional traffic analysis or the traffic study that Sebago Technics did that said that the turn lane was warranted based on today's traffic flow, that's never really been germane to our topic or really a focal point of what we've been discussing. That's why it never had a third-party review, because it wasn't part of any process or application. It was just something they did that their traffic engineer came across during the design of the turn lane. I can't guarantee that I can go get a third-party assessment of that letter by the 22nd of April. I'm going to try real hard, but that's the one component of the tabling and the direction staff got, was to go do a third-party and review of a traffic analysis that was never actually sort of required. It was just something they provided as backup documentation on their own. So we'll do our best. We're going to get this back to you as quickly as we can so that you can include it in your considerations for 2025, since we just found out about this award.
And the city council will be voting on the budget in May, so hopefully we'll be able to get that information back to you.
Anyone else? Okay, that takes care of the action items. That moves us to item 9, new business. Item A is a petition for zoning text amendment filed by Cosmic Solutions LLC, represented by Cohen Law, Maine, to add adult-use marijuana manufacturing to the industrial zoning district pursuant to Title 28-B Cannabis Legislation Act. Who's presenting that?
Oh, that would be Director Prescott.
And we have Director Prescott.
So we have a petition here this evening. We have the petitioners present with us tonight if you'd like to hear from them. Using our current process, we're sending everything to new business. It is a petition, so it will go for planning board as a public hearing. Any questions that you would like to ask the petitioners, now is a great night. It's also a great night to direct any questions to planning board so we can funnel those through the normal process like we did with the last 2 zoning map amendments. Please keep in mind that the planning department is neutral on amendments. It is a policy matter up to the city council and the planning board. We are here to support you with answering questions and providing resources from the comprehensive plan, which we will do throughout the review process. The one last thing I do want to point out, according to the Cannabis Legalization Act, I did call the Office of Cannabis Policy and make sure that it is true that we could opt in for one versus all of the different types of adult use cannabis uses. And yes, we can. So there is this option that's being requested tonight, and you'll hear more, I'm sure, from the petitioner if you so choose to hear from them tonight. Thank you.
Any questions for Director Prescott? Councilor Johnston, then Councilor Berman.
Oh, not so much a question. Well, I guess it's a question. Just when this comes back, if we can have an indication of how many marijuana uses currently are in Saco and specifically the industrial park or the area we're talking about amending.
And you would like all marijuana uses, right?
Yeah, whatever we currently allow, just so I can have a better understanding of how much or how prevalent this use is.
Councilor Berman.
Planner Prescott, I don't know if you know or not, but I was, I guess one of my questions after reading this is are there any actual manufacturing changes, process changes, activities by a business that would change as the result of this zoning change?
I think that's a really good question. Excuse me. If I may, I think that's a really good question for the petitioner. They can go into more of the details on what the process changes would be required for the licensing they'll need to do. But there are some things, but perhaps not as much as we would be thinking about.
Yeah, okay. And I mean that not just in terms of the licensing and legal aspects, but also in terms of the actual activities, the manufacturing, the development, the shipping, the packaging activities that be occurring on the site. You think that's a question for the applicants also?
That's a question for the
Thank you.
petitioners.
Okay, anyone else? And Councilor Gunn, this is assigned to you. Are you willing to accept?
Certainly.
Okay.
Did
Not
you
seeing
want to ask any
Oh,
questions?
do you have any
of
questions
the
for the applicants tonight?
petitioners tonight?
I guess I would like my question to be referred to the applicants if possible.
Good evening. I'm Jill Cohen with Cohen Law Maine. I represent Patrick Robinson and Cosmic Solutions operating at...
Would you mind right into the microphone, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Operating at 74 Industrial Park Road, where they have been since...
6 years.
6 years. So they currently have an extraction lab that is approved by the state for medical. And to answer your question, the processes are identical. So it doesn't add any additional uses. It does add quite a bit of additional oversight at the state level, which I would think everybody would appreciate. The adult use program is more highly regulated than the medical program, although I will say they are operating currently under the dispensary license category, so they are used to a higher level of scrutiny as opposed to caregivers. So we have medical caregivers, medical dispensary, and then adult use. And so the amount of scrutiny on those licenses goes up at each level. So they have made a significant investment here in Saco in the lab. They actually are currently going through a recertification process and having a Maine licensed engineer recertify all of the equipment in the building. So that's happening as we speak as part of their license renewal process with the state. But all of the processes and products that they'll manufacture, it's exactly the same. So there would be no public-facing impact from opting into manufacturing. It would just allow them to use their equipment and their investment in both programs, in both medical and adult use.
Does that answer your questions?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, and we'll have this on a future agenda. Okay, item B is our fiscal year 2025 budget presentations. And first up, we have the water resource recovery with Director Carter.
Good evening, folks. So, happy to be here tonight. Started off, this first slide is just a picture of myself and Riley Cobb, our industrial pretreatment coordinator with us over at the National Night Out. I think a lot of you folks are there for that. So the enterprise fund explanation and drivers. The WRRD uses an enterprise fund to ensure long-term financial stability of its water resource recovery activities. This fund is a separate financial report mechanism for which revenues and expenditures are segregated with financial statements separate from all other government activities. So in short, that we have no part of the general fund. We're a whole separate entity for those type of things. And our triple bottom line is social, that's protection of the health and the well-being of all who live, work, and play within the city. Our second driver is the environmental protection of the city's largest resource, the Saco River. And the third is economic development in support of that. So for a year in review, we had 4,998 residential customers. That's up from 4943 last year, so we had 55 new residential places. Non-residential users are up to 406. That's up from 402. Average sewer residential bill last year or this year is $114 per quarter. And our sewer abatements were $219,000 last year. What that is your sub-meter credits for your lawn. That's down considerably from $286,000 the year before. Another big one was rain, 71 inches of rain. That was a big push over the previous year where we had just about 39 inches of rain. As you recall, it was a very wet summer and it continues to be a very wet spring. And the That put us up almost 1 billion gallons of water treated last year, 963 million. And finally, our tons of biosolids produced went down quite a bit from the year before. So some of our highlights from last year, went around and we changed all the telemetry at our pump stations. That's basically where cell modems, or we communicate from all the pump stations back to the treatment plant and to the people on staff. We use Verizon cell modems for those. And we upgraded a lot of the older stations. We did the Fish Pier 1, we actually did Strawberry Fields, Brookside, and Ryan Farm pump stations out off the Jenkins Road. We also continue to work with our design engineers to get the upgrade all designed and ready to put out, and got our not to exceed contract. So for our budget info, as most of you folks have been on the council know, that the council was supportive of 3 subsequent rate increases of 15%, 15%, and 15% to pay for this. Well, now that we've got a refinement of the scope of the work and projected financial interest rates, I think we're happy to report that we think this next year we're only going to do 12% instead of the 15% to try to help some folks out. And we're also proposing a flat budget. We've had some breaks with electricity costs have come down a little bit. Our biosolids went down, like I showed you, a couple hundred wet tons, and at $180 a wet ton, that was quite substantial. And I got to give credit to Riley and the industrial pretreatment work. Really, we have a couple of seafood processors that really give us a lot of biosolids, and we worked with them quite hand in hand over the year. So that puts us a new sewer rate going from $7.36 per 100 cubic feet to $855 per 100 cubic feet. And that should be our last big rate increase going forward. And as you can see, for the fiscal year 2025 budget, I brought this slide up just to show that our bond payment is actually 31% of our budget going forward. This is something that we didn't have a few years ago. And some of our goals for 2025 is we will remain dedicated to promoting staff education and growth through the various training courses that are offered. We'll maintain our relationships with state and local and national partnerships. And we'll help go with collaboration, innovation, and professional development opportunities for staff. That's very important to me and us, in our crew. And we'll be in full swing with construction. As most of you folks know, we're now underway. Construction has started. And we are now working with communications to try to have a groundbreaking ceremony with some of the congressional staff and the mayor and the governor coming up fairly soon. And lastly, our preventive maintenance program will still be going on. We'll be upgrading with some more pump stations, some more electrical. We're looking to add some odor control measures on some sections of the city, and keep on keeping on. And with that, take any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Director Carter? Not seeing any. Great.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you. Okay, next up we have the Police Department with Chief Clements.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm not sure how I'm going to do following up behind Director Carter with solid waste, but I'll do my best. So from the beginning, I direct your attention to page 123 in the budget book. That's where the police department's budget is. I'm coming in with a maintenance of effort budget, so no asks. Start off with a little bit of how we did this year. The first thing I'd like to direct your attention to is our OUIs. So the previous year, we did 193. This year, we're at 100, or this past year, we're at 135. Previous year was 193. If you take out the Maine State Police, we're one of the top 3 agencies in the state for OUIRS. Next, I'll direct your attention to our calls for service, 26,616. That's what comes into the communication center. That's police, fire, EMS. That does not include all the phone calls that comes in. That's just the calls that generate a call for service in our CAD dispatch center. So there's a lot more phone calls that come in on top of that. Community outreach. This year we held our largest ever national night out event at Thornton Academy. In addition, my administrative assistant, Amy Sinclair, and Rebecca did our Socks for Seniors, and this year we'd like to bring back Coffee with a Cop. In addition to that, if you've seen in the paper, we have a new canine, our black lab named Preacher, who is going through the certification process. He's already completed search and rescue training, which means he can go out and find people, whether it's runaways or if somebody goes missing. He can already do that. Now he's working through the narcotics detection standpoint. He's passed all the testing, but you need 400 hours, so quite a bit of work involved in that. So that is ongoing, but I kind of put that in community outreach because he's going to be out going to community events as well. Recruitment, as you know, recruitment and retention in law enforcement is a challenge for, I think, every agency across the country. We've been doing a lot of work in this. So we've gone as far away as Joint Base Andrews down in Maryland, as far west as Fort Drum in New York. We've been to Philadelphia, twice to Peabody, Massachusetts, locally Southern Maine Community College, Husson University, Maine Criminal Justice Academy. We went up to the Augusta Civic Center for a Maine Veterans Hiring event, and we also went to 2 other universities in New England. Traffic enforcement, that's always a hot topic when people want to talk about accidents that occur in the city. We did 4,780 motor vehicle stops last year. So we have 1 unmarked car that we're using for traffic, and very quickly you'll see a second unmarked car that'll be out working, doing traffic enforcement. Then I'd like to talk a minute about mental health and mental wellness. As you know, we did hire a community engagement specialist. That's Rebecca Lyons. She's a licensed clinical social worker. So if you look back in 2021, our mental health calls were 253. 2022, they jumped to 354. And then last year, we were at 409. So that's obviously a big component of what we do at the police department. Year to date, we're at 65. Rebecca did over 1,200 contacts with individuals and families, and she's also been involved in doing a number of group presentations around the city that I've attended some of those with her. As well, when you look at the wellness piece, we also take care of our employees. So our employees every year go to a visit with a licensed clinical social worker just to check up on them, make sure that they're doing well. There's a lot of bad things that they see, so we want to make sure that we take care of our employees as well. Fiscal year 24 achievements, one of the things that through the IT department we were able to get in last year's budget, laptops and cell phones that were assigned individually to the officers. This is to meet the upcoming CJIS compliance requirements for multi-factor authentication. So that technology was an important piece for us to get in front of. We have hired some officers this year. We've hired some from out of state, some locally, and recently we hired somebody who had come to the United States from France. One of the upcoming things one of the things we did start was computer-aided dispatch and records management. We're going the same route county-wide as the fire department did. The fire department was able to work with the county and have the county be the purchasing agent for their First Due Fire program. All of the police departments in York County, they're all mostly on an antiquated legacy product that is going to start having some issues. So we all got together, and that project is in full swing. There should be an RFP coming out, I believe, by May, and then we can start moving forward on a new CAD RMS system. And then one of the things that we did also within the police department is we did a program for our employees where we bring in seasoned leadership people to come in and talk about leadership with our workforce. I was fortunate to have my former boss, retired Sheriff Doug Gillespie from Las Vegas, came through and spoke to the staff. And we also had a Kennebunk native, Lieutenant General Mike Shields, came in and spent half a day with the workforce. And then finally, we were able to get a retired lieutenant colonel from Army Special Forces that came down from northern Maine to speak to all of the police chiefs in York County about leadership. So we're kind of bringing that to the entire county level, specifically with some of the active shooter events and things that have gone on, so looking at those a little differently. Projects and goals for this year, again, recruitment and retention. We did get money last year for repurposing our firearms range. Having an indoor firearms range now is just not something that's feasible. It's not even fiscally responsible. So we are working with some vendors that can do lead remediation. Once that happens, we'll complete that space and have a brand-new physical fitness and grappling area for our law enforcement officers. We're going to continue working on the CAD RMS system, continue with our National Night Out, Socks for Seniors, and we're going to add in Coffee with a Cop. And then we're going to continue our guest lecture series at the department and continue to bring people in. We're going to expand that, try to bring in people from the business sector, so we get a little more diversity in the leadership piece.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Any questions for Chief Clements? Councilor Hatch?
Thank you, Mayor McPhail. First of all, Chief Clements, I just want to commend you and your force for the limitless efforts you put in to protect this community. Being as shorthanded as you are, I know it's a strain on the fine folks that we have protecting us, so I wanted to thank you for that. And it sort of dovetails into this. One of the issues, as I look at your 2025 goals here, the continued recruitment and retention efforts, I talk to you a lot about what you're doing. I find it fascinating that you are stepping out of the box, trying to do some things differently, and hopefully it'll bear fruit for you. But I think as a council, we need to, and we probably all do already, is realize that pay is not the entire answer. It's pay and other things that we might be able to do to help you attract good workers from outside. You and I had a conversation about I think it was your last hire, and trying to find housing and how expensive it was. And so I think that personally, I'm going to try to do what I can here in this role to, not only for you, but it's an issue throughout the municipality. I do have a budget-related question, and I'm not sure I want to direct it at you because it's in the administrator's changes column.
The 100,000?
Yeah, I want to just clarify what that is, if you could.
That, if I might, Your Honor.
Yep.
That would be what we felt because of the recruiting issues that we've had, that presently, Chief, I think you have, 8 openings now?
8 vacancies, yes,
Yeah,
sir.
so even if we were able to get somebody on board, in fact, if we were to get all 8 on board, it would probably take us through fiscal year '25 to get them on the street. So it was my feeling, and the chief agreed, that we would just bring that down $100,000. I mean, I did not want to go too deep into his budget, but, they really, if you look at the history of his surplus at the end of the year, I just thought it was probably prudent to address that and to and try to put it against the tax rate.
Appreciate that, and that's a very good explanation. And if a miracle happens, and you fill all those positions, we're going to come back for a budget
Absolutely.
amendment.
That's what I
All right,
told him.
I'll be the first one to vote yes. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir, and I support what the city administrator wants to do, and I agree with him completely. One of the things that we've always done every year with some of that surplus, rather than increasing our budget the next year, like ammunition purchases, one-time items, that we purchase, we're able to use that leftover money to make those purchases. But we have given back, because of the staffing challenges, a significant amount of money, so completely agree with the city administrator on that.
Excellent, thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Johnston?
Question was already answered. I heard 8 vacancies.
Yes, sir.
Currently. Yeah, I was surprised to see. I was looking at Biddeford's budget, And I was shocked to see they had, I think it was about 15 vacancies just in the PD, and the fire department had several more. So just sharing that with you all, because it's clear that there's a real issue out there. That's it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I get information from all over the country. This is a national problem. And it used to be 4 or 5 years ago, we were competing against other police departments. Now we're competing against everybody because there's vacancies everywhere. So it is a challenge.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Okay, next up, we have Economic Development with Director Desjardins.
Go down a little lower. Good evening. My name is Tracy Desjardins. I'm the Director of Economic Development. I'm here to present you with the FY25 budget. If you can find the Economic Development budget on page 193 in the budget book, and this also includes the capital improvement projects that are also funded through the Tax Increment Finance District, which is known as TIFs. 100% of the Economic Development Department is funded through the TIF budget. The department in action is $7.7 million, which was generated in through the TIF. We had $1.9 million funded through capital projects. We did 12 ribbon cuttings, and we're still doing ribbon cuttings. The year isn't completed yet. We worked with about 100+ business for business attraction and retention. There's been 34 new businesses registered with the city clerks. And through our grant program, we have approved $55,363 in grants. This would be facade grant and the small business grant. And from that, the businesses have done new investment of over $304,000 that they've invested out of their pocket. So we get into the tax relief. And in the budget cycle, there is recommendation to return 43% from the downtown TIF district and 28% from the transit-oriented TIF district to help reduce taxes. The total estimated amount of the TIF dollars returned, looking at $2 million. And you can see from the graph, we'd also be looking at over the next 3 years. So you have your TIF district transfers, which is the solid blue, your return of funds, which is the shaded blue, and then your TIF property value, which comes up higher in the next 3 years. For the FY24 achievements, one of the biggest things of being displaced for 6 months through the flood is that I was also able to hire a new economic development specialist, and that was Tori Gorman, who was the executive assistant for the city administrator, and she's doing an outstanding job. We also were featured in an article in the Business View magazine. I did send that out to everyone so you could have an opportunity to see. I worked with the communications department on that, and again, it's that collaborative effort between the different departments of why we're looking so good. Continue to work on with the market analysis, and this is with the Economic Development Commission. TIF revenues are always looking at opportunities for TIF revenues for projects that can be funded through that resource. Worked with staff on the new city policies, which is the food truck and the sidewalk vendor. Continued, as you can see from our grant program and revolving loan program, is we've been doing a lot of marketing, getting that information out. Sale of city-owned properties, that has come before the Economic Development Department. Building the relationship and working with marketing and communications. Also with that, within our monthly newsletter, we have created our own little section called Business Buzz. You see it a little bit on there. And through that is to kind of highlight various businesses, information that's going on that we can kind of share regarding economic development programs. Wayfinding signs, that is still ongoing. For our 2025 projects and goals, oh wow, so going back to 2024, I didn't mention, which was a big thing for Camp Ellis, and that was bringing back the Camp Ellis Harbor Festival, which was very successful, and we are in the planning process of that now, and the dates would be the first weekend in August. For 2025 projects, working with the planning department and the other departments through the Portland Road and Route 1 master plan. Again, continue to work with TIF revenues for capital projects, grant and the RLF programs, which is the revolving loan programs, housing opportunities, that's one that's been kind of the keyword being tossed around at different times. Again, looking at housing opportunities to help our workforce and for low income. Brownfields Phase 1 and 2 assessments. The city received a $500,000 Brownfields grant. The EDC group will actually be taking this on. We do have a property out in the industrial park that we'll be doing the Phase 2 on, and then we'll start working and doing our outreach and start building our projects of potential brownfield sites in the community. Wayfinding sign installation. That is a big goal, is to have all new signs put up by this fall. And also, Tori has done an outstanding job in working with the Arts Commission, and they are doing public art expansion projects. So you'll see some new art work coming down the pike as well. And the other part of working with EDC is we're doing our own committee goal setting on in looking at the market analysis and the direction that they want to go as well with the city. And thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments? Councilor Berman.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Really helpful. I'm wondering if you can go back to the slide on the TIF revenues and the reallocation for tax relief. Yeah, that one there. And I know we got stuck on this a little bit in the 2024 budget, and so I want to really make sure I understand what's happening for the 2025 budget. And I understand, I think, and you correct me where my understanding is not correct, that what we feel is that there's some growth in the balances of our TIF accounts that's not being well utilized for TIF-eligible projects, and therefore that money is sitting unused, and therefore we want to reallocate it into the general fund away from the TIF districts in order to provide some immediate tax relief. And I guess one area that, if all that's correct, one area I remain confused about is part of my understanding on TIF funding is that it actually shielded growth in property values from the state assessment when they do our education formulas, and therefore they saw lower tax values, which then increased the state subsidy towards the city over a 3-year time frame in roughly the amount of about 50% of those revenues. The slide we used to get was, for every dollar you put in a TIF, you save 50 cents in taxes or something like that over the 3 years that they look at. And so I guess my question is about I understand there's an immediate benefit to the taxpayer, but I guess my question is about the long-term consequences of those reallocations and whether we're going to see a drop in the state tax subsidy.
Can I see that? Can I speak to that?
Yes.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I when I came and that was explained to me, I basically then went and talked to Jeremy. And I talked to him, and I talked to him explicitly about this. And it's a 3-year overall look back. So it happens over a period of time. It's not something that happens like that. And so at some point, you can't shield all that money forever. So in talking to Jeremy, he felt, I should say the superintendent of schools, he felt this was not going to have any impact on him with the way we're proceeding with the use of TIF. So we thought that was probably something we needed to continue to do. Like I said, at some point, that's going to come on to the general fund side, and that money is going to be used for against the tax rate. So we thought this year was very important because the plan last year, if I understand it correctly, was to try to use the money, the TIF that we're using this year for last year. And it just, for some reason, there was a misunderstanding, and it just never got approved by the council. This year, what I intend to do is, as part of your motions in May, that there will be a motion in there for this specifically, and I will quite frankly say to you that, that it has to be part of all the motions in terms of adoption of the budget, no matter what you want to do. If you want to add or subtract or whatever happens, it needs to be done so that you don't have a huge hole in your revenue side of your budget.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I definitely don't want it done the way it was done this time. That didn't work out at all.
Right.
But I guess my question, what I really want to clarify, I understand this is going to help the property tax side on the municipal side this year, but we're not going to see a corresponding offset on the school budget side in coming years.
Well, again, I can only rely on the information I get, and I talked to the superintendent, and he felt that it was not going to be a major issue.
Thank you.
You shouldn't see too much of it, is because, again, just like the city administrator said, that you've got to look at the span of the TIF districts, and there is going to come the time where you're going to start cutting back, and that value is going to go back in, and it is going to make an adjustment. So that's that is going to be the time to really look at that and how it's going to affect, and when you want to start cutting back on that. We've gone through legal counsel on this, and we're not going to see much in a way of making those changes. It's not going to be a hardship against the school and what we're going to get for subsidies. And again, what's being presented to you is you've got this year, but when we did, when Glennis Hallis had done out the projections of this, we looked at it for the next 3 years, so it gave you an idea on the graphs to see that there's not going to be, the money is there to support it, and this is allowable to be able to do that. And if it does help with the taxpayers of money that we can't use other words, then it certainly makes sense to do that.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Councilor Gunn.
I just want to make a small clarification. It wasn't really so much as a misunderstanding as so much as the opinion of some councilors that we touch the budget surplus or projected budget surplus before if we ever get the audit set up, although I know that we have, to touch tax relief and not touch tax dollars. That was really, it was a policy difference, really, was the driving force behind it. That's why I'm still seeing these tax TIFs being used for this purpose is giving me some pause, though, but I think I'll have to get with you a little bit more just to get some more details about potential what it could be used, or really more accurately, what could not be used for it, though, because I still feel like we're leaving TIF dollars on the table by using this. And the last thing I want to see is us fall into the pattern of, for lack of a better term, a gimmick, where we start going back to the well on this one. So.
No, I think that one of the things with it is that how the TIF districts are structured, they are really structured to be able to get the most maximum of what you can do with those dollars. However, there is only so many, we can do a lot, but you also have the staff and then you also have, the availability projects to be able to do. There's only so much the staff is going to be able to do. So when we look at, you've got to look at when you're doing the budget is what's feasible. What can you do within that time frame? You can look at your capital improvements, and you're going to see that when that's done. Some of these projects we looked at projections of 5 years out. But again, you're looking at staff, and you're looking at having to maybe hire a consultant to come in and do some of those work. So that's why it's important to kind of put these things within the capital projects of the long term. And then what you do within your spreadsheets is you kind of calculate that out. So it's balancing out. And again, the spreadsheets and how it is within the capital, you will see that. You will see all those projects, going out for that. So I think, as far as the city's in very good shape when it comes to the TIFs. And if they weren't, I would say, working around TIFs as many years as I have, I've seen some that are not as in good a shape as far as the city of Saco to be able to do this. So, City Administrator Bohankel has come up, is like looking to try to help the taxpayers, and that's all you guys, that's what you're here to try to do as well. And this is an opportunity to do that without doing a lot of jeopardizing as far as on how that's going to affect it down the road. If you look at taking property out of TIF districts and putting it back in, then that's a different story. But what you're doing is you're utilizing TIF dollar funds to put back in the general revenue to help offset some of that, and that is allowable use.
Councilor Hatch?
Thank you, Mayor McPhail. I just want to address something at a more philosophical level, if I could. I think you had a slide that indicated you had over 100 new businesses.
No, what it means is just basically businesses that are potential people that kind of called or are looking at businesses. These are businesses that we've gone in to see, you know, not targeting that there's 100 new businesses.
Okay.
We don't catch them all, but we've done quite well.
Of the ones you do catch, are there any metrics available that determine where they are, these businesses are in their life cycle? So for example, you know, startup businesses theoretically are in the first 3 years of their operation. They have a significantly high failure rate. Any metrics that you study, any studies that have been done by the SBA. And so as I look to, and I'm trying to tag this comment to the Portland Road, because I think for the city, that is, you know, one of our last real hopes of building a commercial base to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
And the need to bring into that mix businesses that are mature and established will, I think, contribute to the long-term success of that, stabilizing this tax rate where we're disproportionately over on the resi side and need to shift over the commercial side. So, you know, I think we see it in Portland, you see, and a little bit in Biddeford where the restaurants particularly, they come, they go, they come, they go, they come, they go. And, you know, I'm not sure that's good development of a business community. You need some of that, but you don't need to depend on it too heavily. So it's just it's not even a question, it's just a comment that as we move forward and figure out what we're going to do in the Portland Road District, that we give some thought to recruiting the established folks who are more likely to survive in the long term.
And that's a legitimate point, is because what we want to do is we want to make every business successful. In your downtown businesses, you know, they come and go. You know, Tam Box is one that is brand new, and they've gotten a lot of money, and they're still growing. I went out and met with them the other day, and they're still growing. So that's what you kind of hope, especially with, you know, young companies coming in, that they have that potential to grow. But again, as we kind of look through things, one of the things that we try to do is that when we have somebody come in, is kind of help guide them, look at the opportunities, and kind of help assist within that. When we look at Route 1, you know, you're right, that is the last area that we have for redevelopment. So this master plan and getting people involved, what is it that you want to see there and how we can work towards that goal is certainly going to help us out in our department as well as the planning department to kind of make sure that we are making that match and making everything fit well together.
Just to add to that tonight, as a matter of fact, we had an excellent long-range planning committee a work session with a number of people, and it really gets to the issue of the Route 1 area, and there needs to be direction that's going to have to be put forward, and this is the first step. You know, it's something that's not going to happen overnight. I think people have to look at it and look at a long-range plan and stick to it, and so I know the planning staff is working hard that way, and along with economic development. So I think those that attended tonight's long-range planning committee were really excited about how they could envision that new gateway. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up we have the Planning Department with City Planner Emily Cole Prescott.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me tonight to speak about my budget for fiscal year 2025. If you want to take a look at the budget book, it's on page 118. That has all of the budget breakdown for the planning department. I think you all are aware and familiar with this slide, but the guiding principles of the department are process, collaboration, communication, and transparency. I think we've seen a lot of these principles baked into everything the planning department does, and I'm very proud of the team that we now have. Our highlights, we did our data based on calendar year because that's how we report a lot of our information. So we did 79 applications this year. That's across the desks of planning reviews, so that includes subdivisions, site plans, conditional use reviews, and Historic Preservation Commission as well. We had 85 plus meetings where we were either facilitating the process of next steps of applications. As you all know, our focus this year was on neighborhood meetings, so that definitely increased the time that we spent in night meetings, but in a positive way for our applicants as well as for the community members. Additionally, we are staff liaisons to 6 boards and commissions. This includes Planning Board, Long Range Planning Committee, Conservation Commission, Bike Ped Advisory Committee, and Energy and Sustainability Committee. So we're really proud of all the work that our volunteers do, and we have a lot of really engaged volunteers, which makes things go really well and make our days a little different every day and make it pretty fun. This year we had 4 info sessions, so as I think you've seen, we've been trying to really get back out into the community, be more of a resource before we're in the throes of a development review. So we're trying to make it so people feel more comfortable coming into our office and just saying hi. So we have had 4 info sessions. We've had topics that have included infrastructure, housing, climate, and resiliency, and I think you've seen some of those. We're very happy and thankful for the collaboration we've had across the desks of communications, water resource, public works, economic development, code enforcement, finance, just to name a few. This year we reviewed 30 new house lots that were approved through the planning board subdivision process. These include the approved subdivision lots. This does not include all of the units that we reviewed this year, as that number is much higher. We also did 4 key ordinance revisions, including LD 2003. We updated our cost recovery ordinance with the finance department, and then we did a key stormwater ordinance revision for compliance with MS4 with public works, and then we did housekeeping ordinance amendments, which I thought was a great process, workshop some items, and we know we have a list that eventually we'll have to work on prioritizing together, the full list. So some really great stuff from this year. I won't read through everything, but we were ahead of the timeline for our housing ordinance revisions for LD 2003. We had a lot of work with the Long Range Planning Committee, and I think you'll see more of that positive work coming forward, as City Administrator Bohenko alluded to, and Director Desjardins mentioned. Tonight, the planning staff led the Long Range Planning Committee workshop for visioning of Route 1, and we thank our partnership with Economic Development and Code Enforcement, as well as Police Department on that. I'm also very proud of our assistant planner who graduated this just recently with her Master's of Public Policy and Management. And we also have a Historic Preservation Commission grant that we were awarded. And then the key to our department is partnerships and collaboration, and I think we're pretty good at that overall. So again, very glad of the work we're doing this year and for council support. So back to that with council support, we're grateful for the budget amendment to build out our compliance program. We're in the process of hiring for that position now. We are still working on a place for everyone and bringing forward the next steps of our housing action plan. We are aware that that is ARPA funded, so we will need to be under contract by December for that. The Transportation Master Plan and Impact Fee Study, partnership again with Public Works. We will continue that work and complete it. We are very close to signing for a consultant on that project. For our climate, we did host our climate info session, and we are closing out the climate adaptation and action plan. We spent a good amount of time listening to the public, and then interfacing more with our community. We're continuing to work to make ourselves a resource hub as much as possible. As far as the climate plan, you will have a 2-week comment period on that. We are working on final drafts now, just so you all know. It was pretty short and sweet because I'm here a lot, so if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions or comments for Planner Prescott? Councilor Hatch?
Just a quick comment. I'm privileged to be serving as liaison to the planning department. It amazes me the amount of work you guys get done, and it's you're bringing this department to a very high level of professionalism. So I just wanted you to know people see this, and it makes a difference. Okay, so keep up the good work. All right.
Yeah, thank you, much appreciated, and I'll pass that along as well.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, not seeing anyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and the last department presentation tonight is Parks and Rec with Director Summer.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to come up and talk to you about the Parks and Recreation 2025 fiscal year budget. Before we start, you can, if you're looking for the budget, it's on page 110. But before we start, I want to stand up here and thank my staff for the hard work that they do, the dedication that they have. Every department in the city works hard to strive to be the best, but I always tell my staff, and I would tell you guys, I would put them up against any community knowing that they will beat them. They are that much more successful because they truly are passionate about what they do. They don't look at it as a job. They come in every day and they love what they do. So some of the Parks and Recreation departments in action. The Parks Department oversees 673 acres of land. We maintain 160 acres. For the 14th consecutive year, the city of Saco is being recognized as a Tree City USA. From July 1st of 2023 through March 14th of 2024, we had 13,200 total number of registrations for all our programs. We currently offer over 85 senior bus trips, 20 lunch and learns, 3 special meals, and a monthly breakfast club for our seniors just alone. And if you joined us on Saturday, you should have gone to our sock hop, and it was phenomenal. And the next one's going to be a hoedown, so just to get your boots going. From July 1st, 2023 through March 14th, 2024, we had a total of 1,750 participants in all our youth activities. And between our summer camps, our theater camps, and after the bell, our daycare operation sees 1,055 kids throughout the year. What's our hope and goals of 2025? The hope is to build a non-motorized boat launch for canoes, kayaks, and paddleboards at the Prentice Park, which is located on Route 5, just before Dayton. We are teaming up with Biddeford Saco Rotary Club 6294 to add a splash pad at the community center. We're going to expand recreational programming and opportunities for all to participate, and 2 of those programs will be fencing and archery, which will be brought to our programs. With the school's talks about the potential of building a new school, we are going to begin to explore the ideas and design of what a destination park could look like at Pepperell Park. As asked us from last year to work to build a team program, we spent the year building a team program, and we are now at the level where we have outgrown the 300 square foot room at the community center. We're going to expand and the one garage that we have left to build at the community center to add about another 600 square feet, so there'll be about 900 square feet for the team program. And if you're aware, we offer a Twin City Theater Academy. Like travel basketball, they want to expand, they want to go bigger and better and all that. So in January, over Martin Luther King Day weekend, we are going to send a group of kids with their parents down to Atlanta, Georgia, to attend the Junior Theater Festival Academy down there. What did we achieve in 2024? We built stairs down at Standing Bottom to make it easier to access this popular fishing ground. We developed a team program from Wednesday through Friday evening with great success, and right now we're currently averaging between 18 and 25 kids a night. We added a second 15-passenger bus to our fleet, which has allowed us to add almost 30 more trips to our senior programs, as well as transportation for our summer camps. We've built basketball hoops with the collaboration with the Saco School Department at Saco Middle School and Burn School. We have over 700 participants in our summer and theater camps. And lastly, we redesigned and finished the community center basketball court. The budget. Really, at the end of the day, with City Administrator Bahenko's support, the budget for Saco Parks and Recreation is going to go up quite a bit. And the reason why is for the last 2 years, we've been over budget in how we've kept the maintenance of effort, and we've kind of pushed and kept it low and kept the numbers low. And so we've been over the last 2 years about $100,000 each year. Now we've made it up with the revenue, the excess revenue that we've had with the opportunity. And we're on task for that again this year just because of the programs that we offer, the participants that we have, the revenue that we bring in. We're not a program that sits and says, okay, we're just going to take 10 kids, and once we get to the 10 kids, we're done. We're not that way. We're just going to keep taking them because we believe that's what we should be doing. So right now, our budget is proposed to be about 12% higher, or at a sum of $167,000 more than last year. A lot of that is because of JTF, but a lot of it is, again, when you have more participants, the T-shirts cost more money, the more staff costs more money, the additional bus trips and things like that. But the difference is most of our programs are a wash. Our revenue helps us pay for the programs. So with the increase of 12% to our budget, the revenue is going to go up 30% or $350,000. So at the end of the day, this department is going to give back more money to the taxpayers and to the budget cycle because we bring in that much more revenue, because we add more programs. We kind of maneuver that through. So the increase of our budget would not be on the backs of taxpayers. We are actually giving more money back in our revenue back to the taxpayers. We have some testimonials for you. The first one is from a gentleman who's a teacher now, who grew up in our camps, who worked at our camps all the way up to being a director, and he currently is a teacher at one of the schools in Saco. The second is from somebody who attended our Thanksgiving luncheon and thanked us for the great event and the fact that the team seemed to enjoy one another. And that's kudos to my directors out back too, because if you actually showed up to the luncheon for Thanksgiving, there's a lot of laughter and a lot of smiles and a lot of friendly faces. The third one is for the first and third grade from a parent whose kids participate in our basketball program and how much fun they're enjoying it. And the last is for our parks team, who, like Public Works, who works hard every day to make sure that the parks are beautiful, to make sure the trees are exceptionally maintained, but when there's a disaster or a snowstorm, something like that, they're out there in the ugliest of times to make sure that the citizens are able to move around. And so Saco Parks and Recreation, building community through people, parks, and programs.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Director Summer? Councilor Berman?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Director Summers. I appreciate the way you framed the budget, and just to make sure, I think that everybody understands what I understand is that in the past, while it appears you've been over budget, it's because your programs have grown beyond your expectation. So you were conservative in your budgeting for expenses. You were also conservative in your budgeting for revenue. Your programs grew beyond expectations, which of course causes some expense or increase in the expenses, but that was more than made up for the revenue. So when you balance the two, the two always balanced. You weren't spending more than you brought in. In fact, you were bringing in more than you spent. It was just in the way you budgeted. And this year, you're taking a new strategy. You're trying to more accurately budget your expenses, but also more accurately predict your revenue. So both numbers have gone up, and the increase in revenue is likely to more than offset the increase in expenditures.
That is correct.
Yeah, so it's not that delta, that's not the difference that's changing.
No.
It's that both numbers are increasing to become more accurately reflecting the growth that your department has seen due to your really strong programs.
That is correct.
Yeah, thank you. And also, I really appreciate the junior theater program, and as you may or may not know, I think a couple of Bermans are attending also, so we are very excited about that in my household.
Very good. Are you going down?
At least 3, maybe 4 of us. It's unclear. I'm on the fence still.
Your Honor, I just wanted to, I think, following up on Council Berman, on page 112, when you look at the bottom line, there's a net number at the end, and it really sums up what Director Summer has brought forward. The net cost is $753,166. You can see that the increase in revenues have offset some of the expenses, and that net number is, quite frankly, in line with actually probably 2 years ago in terms of what the net cost was to the city. So I think Director Summer has put together a good budget here to help all those that are interested in recreating and enjoying the programs, and I commend them for that.
Councilor Hatch?
Thank you. I gave accolades to the planning department because I see them all the time, but I was at the Saco Saturday night. My wife volunteers for Age Friendly. She was in the kitchen. And I will attest to the fact that that staff of yours was into it. They just were into it and very enthusiastically. And I was pleasantly impressed with the quality, the people that attended, the fun that was had. So you can sign me up for, what's the next one?
The next one's going to be a hoedown.
Okay, I'll be at the hoedown. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Councilor Johnston?
Thank you. Yeah, no, I would agree that, the way the budget has been presented it's been a long-standing issue. It really predates even Director Summers, from my understanding of it. It's really just kind of spelling this out more clearly for what's actually occurring. And then I would agree, as you stated, I think we have phenomenal Parks and Rec staff. I would agree, I would put them up against anybody in the state, but equally so, I would put you up against anybody in the state as far as directors. I've been so amazed at what Director Summers has done in, 7 years?
Yes.
6, 7 years. Again, you can never compare it because times are different economically, whatever, but it's just so refreshing to have a director that comes in, you're passionate too, you have a plan, and you attack it, and I respect that. So thank you very much for all that you do.
I very much appreciate that, but really, I'm only as good as my staff.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, so that completes the department presentations. Moving on to item 10, administrative update.
Thank you, Your Honor. The City Public Works Department is going to be accepting storm-related brush at the transfer station. And of course, probably seeing some more over the next few days. Due to the widespread tree damage citywide associated with the ice storm on Saturday, March 23rd, the city will be accepting storm-related brush at the transfer station free of charge until Saturday, April 6th, and we may look at that to expend it more because of the bad weather. So I'll be talking with Director Fox about that to see how we might. But if it is extended, we'll make sure we get that posted on the website. So that, after we see what happens with this storm, the RFP Old Orchard Road MPI paving project, Public Works is advertising the Old Orchard Road MPI paving project, closing on Wednesday, April 17th. Please visit the city's website on the bids and RFPs for additional information. And I also want to bring to the council's attention, just remember that next Monday's meeting has been canceled, and we are meeting on Wednesday, April 10th. And at that time, we'll be talking about the school department budget referendum, and also the budgets that you see listed, codes, clerk, and finance. If there's any questions, I'll be more than happy to try to answer them, Your Honor.
Any questions for City Administrator Bahenko? I do, with the DPW, do we have worked on a date for pickup for Camp Ellis, along with the storm-related damage?
Director Fox, do you have any information on that on Camp Ellis?
Is that regarding just?
Are we doing a pickup day or
Pickup,
open?
we haven't established anything yet. I mean, I've been meeting with several residents one-on-one down there, trying to, make arrangements for where their clean sand from their yard can go and get it back into the dunes or beaches. We did have the dumpster down there for immediate relief, but that not everybody that owns a property down there was necessarily around during the winter to make use of that. So we did talk about working on getting word out to the neighbors down there about doing something else, either a dumpster back in the parking lot for a couple more weeks in April when people start to come up and clean up their properties. The only problem is that tends to then get filled from people outside of the district that were affected by the storm. So we may do just a pickup at the end of people's driveways for remaining storm debris in their yards. So we'll just keep working with we're pretty much, anybody listening tonight that lives in that neighborhood and hasn't contacted Public Works to at least be aware, get on a mailing list, or stay aware of what we're doing down there. But it is pretty localized to the Camp Ellis area for remaining damage that's outside people's homes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, moving on to item 11, council discussion and comment. Any councilors? Councilor Hatch.
Thank you, Mayor McPhail. I just have one issue that keeps coming up, and I'm honestly, I don't know where we are in this, but we had talked about making some provisions that, my recollection is that all boards and commissions, when they put an agenda together, they have a line for public comment. And I have attended, I've seen it in some, and I haven't seen it in all, and so I don't know if where we are with that. So I think my point is I think we need to do whatever we need to do, and I don't know what that is, City Administrator Bahenko, notifying the boards and commissions that they should have a public comment on their agenda when they meet.
Let me talk to city staff and those that work with those committees just to make sure that it can't just be done internally, to address that.
And I've seen situations where it was on the agenda, but there was no public there, so at least you give the public the opportunity to attend, and if they don't, then that's their decision.
Yeah, I think I need to talk to the city staff, those who support those various committees, to make sure there are not specific reasons why they are or they are not having a public comment.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, moving on to item 12, executive session. Is there a motion to go into executive session? Councilor Hatch?
Thank you, Mayor McPhail. Be it ordered that the City Council enter into executive session pursuant to MRSA Title I, Chapter 13, Subchapter 1, Section 4056, C, Real Estate, Map 31, Lot 7, and C, Real Estate, Map 101, Lot 74.
Motion has been made by Councilor Hatch. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Berman. Roll call vote. Councilor Parks?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt?
Yes.
And Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Your office or downstairs? And we will be in the downstairs first floor conference room. Okay, welcome back. Is there a motion to exit executive session?
So moved.
Motion by Counselor Hatch. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Johnston. Roll call vote. Counselor Parks?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
And Counselor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion to exit executive session passes at 9:40. Is there a report?
No report.
Takes us to item 14, and that is the adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion made by Counselor Hatch. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Hewitt. Roll call vote. Counselor Parks?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
And Counselor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion to adjourn passes 6-0 at 9:40. Thank you, everyone, and have a great evening.